Over the past few days, I have been on Twitter and I have seen some of the worst toxicity from men. I really have. And I felt like we needed a palate cleanser from a couple of men that I know make sense and come at things from a sensible standpoint where they understand that men and women can actually be partners in a home. And I've seen this man, Jimmy, all the time. He's doing these skits where he's speaking from both sides of the equation, and it's very, very refreshing. And he uses language in this talking about he is not helping his wife. He is sharing responsibility for the caretaking of his home and his children and the chores and that kind of thing. And it's very, very refreshing to see. And like I said, I think that we need a palate cleanser because, yes, the toxicity is overwhelming at times. It gets us talking. Sometimes we need to know and understand that it is possible to have a partner if you still are looking to have a partner in your home. So if you're on TikTok, I'll put the link to this video in the caption. And if you're on YouTube, here comes the video.
Things I no longer say because I'm a stay-at-home dad and have a better understanding of the domestic labor and the mental load. I no longer say that I'm helping her with the dishes because our words matter, and when we say we're helping her, it reinforces the belief that all of this is her responsibility. So in that case, anything I actually do around the house is not only going above and beyond my standard, but it should be rewarded with some appreciation, right? And while I hope both of you are cultivating a climate of appreciation towards each other, especially about the little things, be careful thinking you're owed a thank you for doing a mutual chore like dishes or sweeping the floor or parenting. And I would imagine it would feel pretty insulting to Emily if I believed I deserved a pat on the back for doing a mutual chore that I've never even expressed appreciation for her doing the lion's share of. And I'm not trying to just get on men, this can be women too. My point is simply that we need to get clear on what's a mutual chore and what's solely my responsibility. And then, once you have that information, serve each other, making sure that you're doing your responsibilities plus some of theirs if you're able to. And then express gratitude and reciprocate. That's how you carry each other's burdens. Doesn't that sound so much better than fighting all the time? That's because it is.
Some of the comments on this post, Laura says, my dad used to say he was babysitting us. I'm sure many of us have heard men say that before. Hannah says, me and my boyfriend just say thank you to each other whenever a chore gets done. It makes the person feel seen and that they did a good job. Junie says, how to get my husband to watch this. Carla says, oh my God, you totally get it. I never liked it when he says, I'm helping you. Exactly. Kalina says, if only he would understand this. It is challenging. These things do need to be said to men. I think a lot of these men who are sensible do end up with a lot of female followers. I completely understand. And I don't know how to make it so that men see this type of thing. But yeah, I have no idea. Men do need to see this type of thing. So, and it's going to be on us, I guess, to keep just like making sure that it is the standard when we are setting our standards to say you're not going to be helping in the household. You're going to be responsible for running this household with me in a partnership. And like Franny says, our words matter. If we don't communicate this up front, if we don't know and understand that we can communicate this up front, then maybe they're never going to get it. I don't know. And maybe that's the reason why a lot of women are just saying, F it, I give up. That's why Plant Love Text says, next time around, if I get a chance, I will absolutely make sure we both take an active role in taking care of the home. So some people are still hopeful, and some people will just need to communicate that this is an important part of being a partner and partnering up in the same home. And then Miss Mulberry says, what about when your partner says that since they don't clean to your standard, it's not their job? Some people are purposely, trying to be substandard because they want you to swoop in and clean up after them. This man, Jimmy, does address weaponized incompetence a lot. And I have no idea how to get around it. Some people on a woman on Reddit says she just lets him clean like that and then makes him use those dishes or makes him sit in those spaces or makes him wear his clothes that he is messed up. Maybe you just clean up and do things for yourself and not him. I don't know how to fix that. Now, I really, really like the ex patriarch. He is methodical in how he handles men's videos. He is responding to a man talking about the 4B movement and how this man is saying that the 4B movement is demonic and we're just a bunch of misandrists and all of that. And then he starts to talk about a situation where men said that they were going to go their own way, but these men just can't stay away. They keep coming back, where women are saying, we are decentering men, and those men can't help but to invade our spaces. This man comes hard. So the ex patriarch brings in their manifesto and what they were looking to achieve. And y'all just going to have to go watch this on his page if you're on TikTok. It is a good one. He is, like I said, he is very methodical in how he breaks down these conversations.
These women are talking about how they're not going to date men, sleep with men, procreate with men, and all these other things, right? Feminism is going to lead these women into dating each other.
Congratulations, you walked face first into the point. And every time these men think they are the first person to realize this, that if you don't date men, well then you'll have to date women or date no one. Yeah, that's the general idea. It's also not a new idea. Separatism has been part of feminist thought throughout second wave feminism of the 60s and 70s, a desire to live a life entirely separated from men and patriarchy. Women have thought about and talked about this issue and the consequences of it for decades, such as when the Chicago Women's Liberation Union wrote back in 1972 that ideological and political separatism wasn't really viable, that women still need men's economic, political, and social allyship to help dismantle patriarchy. But when it came to their private lives, that was another story, and many women made the separatist choice back then, and 50 years later are continuing to make that choice. For years, you've been telling women that they rely on the infrastructure built by men, so they set about building and relying on their own. It is becoming ever more viable for women to live a life entirely separated from men, to live in community with women, to shop at women-owned businesses, to buy products designed and engineered by women, and utilize services and labor provided by women. And you are all so pressed by the very idea of women out there living their lives without men that you not only have to object based on your opinion, but to make out that it's a moral concern.
Is that not of the devil? Like, it's literally evil.
You would think that the devil would be far more involved in the horrific rates of SA, IPV, rape and abuse that women face. The deadliest threat a woman faces is the man in her own home. And when women, battered and broken by what we've done to them, say enough, rather than respect that, or better yet, take a moment of introspection to wonder why every woman you'll date has a story of being abused or harassed by a man, you use it as another opportunity to degrade women further, mocking them even as they say no more. That is the devil's work.
Like, imagine if men got on this app and said, oh yeah, we're going to participate in the 4Bs.
Oh, but men did. Upset at feminist separatism, they decided to lean heavily into that "you can't fire us, we quit" energy and made their own separatist movement. And the original manifesto from 2001 highlights the difference between men's separatism. For men, it was about retributive punishment towards women. Until women started acting right and getting back to the feminine values of unwavering obedience, respect, and sandwich making, then these men were opting out. But the entire goal was always about manipulating women to fit their goal of what a woman should be. And it's funny, I just finished watching a documentary on the FLDS, and there is not a hair's breadth of difference between these men desperately trying to convince women that their only value comes by centering men, by being respectful, obedient, and feminine, and cult leaders using the exact same rhetoric to keep women fearful so that women could be traded around like commodities. It is about fear, control, and domination, which is evidenced by the fact that while these men are claiming the 4B movement is all about man-hating, I can't even mention the name of the men's movement because it has been banned off all social media platforms for promoting violence and hatred against women, with real-life consequences. It was never about them going their own way, which is proven by the fact that they cannot help themselves but comment on, critique, and invade any space where men are decentered, which ultimately is what this is all really about. Men who are secure in themselves and their worth spend zero time concerned about what women who do not want them are doing with their lives. The only men who are pressed are the men who need women to center men, that need to convince women that pursuing a man is the only major milestone in their life that gives women any value. Because those men believe the only measure of success in their life is to have a woman by their side that listens and obeys their demands. They are terrified because their entire lives they've been convinced that a man who is single, who doesn't have a woman that he can control, is worthless and has no value. And that is where men need to come together to offer their voice, their insight, opinions, and wisdom to help men find value and worth within themselves, rather than wasting their breath insulting women who never wanted them in the first place.
And then I came across an article that was written last October. It's an opinion piece. Masculinity is an undefined word. And I want to get into this one. He says, I stopped caring about being perceived as traditionally masculine a long time ago. I think the first time this concept came up was at my first job when, to the surprise of everyone I worked with, I nonchalantly mentioned the fact that I was straight. It bothered me for a little bit, the fact that I was seen as being gay or feminine or whatever adjective my insecure 16-year-old self came up with. But I quickly got over it and realized that it really doesn't matter. It doesn't matter because gender is a social construct, a blurry system of norms and values and traits we've, over the years, come to associate with particular sexes. Men are supposed to be strong and stoic. They're not allowed to care about fashion or paint their nails or even hold their textbooks a certain way. Women, on the other hand, are homemakers, sweet and caring, frankly, a bit irrational because of it. She cares more about shopping than what's going on in the news, and don't even get her started on shoes. Together, these two imaginary people make a perfect 50s nuclear family. Just add a kid who'll be raised with the exact same values to continue the cycle, and you have the reason why the gender binary myth exists to this day. It's worth making clear from the start that masculinity or femininity aren't inherently bad things. It's okay to be a masculine man. It's okay to be a feminine woman. I do think that goes without saying, but I know if I don't clarify that now, then at least one person will think my stated goal is to make men more feminine or whatever. No, the concept I criticize today isn't masculinity in an abstract, undefinable sense, but toxic masculinity, a concept that's easily pinpointable and perpetrates actual serious societal harm. Despite its reputation as a woke buzzword created by vegetarians who find John Wayne films offensive, toxic masculinity hurts everyone regardless of gender identity. It's a patriarchal prison that serves not only to dominate women and other marginalized groups, but also men themselves. It's everything self proclaimed men's rights activists should be fighting against, if only they weren't perpetually immortalizing it. I'm reminded of the Gillette commercial criticizing toxic masculinity that aired in 2019. Don't get me wrong, I'll never be one to praise a corporation for producing a video that jumps on the bandwagon of a popular social issue. Nevertheless, it is interesting to note the severe backlash the video received from men who believed it was criticizing their very existence. And that's the problem I've been getting at. To criticize toxic masculinity is, in the eyes of society, to criticize men themselves. So ubiquitous are the concepts that men can't express emotions, that men must be strong and use violence when necessary, and that boys will be boys, that apply to a label to them is equivalent to some societal scheme to unalive masculinity entirely. Not only that, but it's standard practice to assume that any man that doesn't fall into these rigid boundaries is gay, an assumption that in itself is homophobic. Before I really cared about what people thought my sexuality was, I was told it was the way I dressed, the way I talked, the things I was interested in, the way I wouldn't talk about women's bodies, or my personal favorite, the way I carried myself. It was a number of things, most of which I couldn't control, and it was an impossible battle to win, so I stopped trying. There are plenty of men who don't, though. They continue to try and win the battle and appear as masculine as possible. A 2021 survey from STEM4, an organization promoting mental health awareness among teenagers, found that around 46% of men and boys experiencing a mental health issue wouldn't ask for help, and with 14% of them stating it would make them feel less masculine. That's an existential systemic issue. There's no excuse for the society we've created wherein men are expected to suck it up and deal with their own mental health issues. No wonder nearly 80% of um, self-deletion victims in the United States are men. Ultimately, toxic masculinity is an issue that only men can fix. Men must hold other men accountable for their behavior. Men must help raise the next generation of men to reject traditional values that barricade their personal growth. And men must create a culture of acceptance and understanding among other men, building each other up and being there for each other rather than making their lives hell. It's okay for a man to define masculinity however they feel comfortable doing so. It's okay for a man to reject masculinity entirely and embrace an alternative form of expression. It's okay and integral for masculinity to be inclusive and encompass gay and trans men as well. And it's okay for men to ask for help because God knows we've created a system where they need it. There's no glory in suffering, and it doesn't make you any less of a man for admitting so. One of the things that men have an issue with is that masculinity is so rigidly defined as being opposite of femininity. And so they're always using women as a comparison tool. So whenever they have any elements that may have fallen into what women do, their masculinity is up for definition or up for criticism. And this is why a lot of men can't freely live, whereas women, we're out here just doing our own thing. We can do whatever we want. We're defining ourselves how we want, even when we are criticized for it. So men are going to have to fix that system because patriarchy has created these rigid boxes and they can't get out of these rigid boxes without someone just putting a hard stop to it. Anyways, like I said, I just wanted to do a palate cleanser for today. I've been talking a lot about the toxic things that I've seen on the internet, and I wanted to bring something that was a little bit more hopeful that there are men out there that do get it, do understand. Jump in the comments, let me know what you think about this, and don't forget to